Professor, and I totally agree with you. So this is why the next speaker, Dr. MING Junchao. He's a research fellow from South China Sea Fishery Research Institute of Chinese Academy of Fishery Sciences. Dr. MING Junchao will share the idea of fishery cooperation. So just as Professor Anna said, so we should focus on some function field, just like maybe fishery management. So the Philippines is an agriculture country with plenty of people dependent on fishery. While China is also ever agriculture, very high developed on agriculture technicals. So fishery might be an important function field that our two countries can carry out our cooperation. Okay, so Dr. MING Junchao, please.
Okay, thank you, Chairs. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great honor to attend this webinar on cooperation on the protection of marine environment, fishery management, and maritime law enforcement. So I'm just from the South China Sea Fishery Research Institute of Chinese Academy of Fishery Sciences, which has been undertaking the subtropical and tropical fisheries and aquaculture along the South China Sea. And it is affiliated to the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs. Today, my topic is about the status and fishing challenges and proposed fields of China-Philippines cooperation in fishery sector. The first part is just the review of the cooperation in fisheries between our two countries. Based on my studies, and I personally divided the development, the cooperation into 4 phases. The first one is the non-governmental and assistance forms. This period just before 2004. During this period, there were many international training programs, like which were funded by the FAO and the UNDP and even the Chinese government for China Aid training programs, and also the regional leading center of the NACA also has conducted some customized training programs like the integrated fish farming especially for the Philippines. And the second phase is about incorporation into the intergovernmental cooperation mechanisms. That period lasted 2004 to 2010. During this period, on September 1st of 2004, the MOU on fishery cooperation between the Ministry of Agriculture of China and the Department of Agriculture of the Philippines was signed, and which was witnessed by the 2 presidents of both countries, which both sides has reached a consensus to establish China-Philippine Joint Committee on Fisheries, in JCF in short. And after that, next year in 2005, the first JCF meeting was held in Manila. And also during this period, a deep water cage culture space for the sea bass and the golden trophy in Subic Bay in the Philippines was established by the Chinese and Philippines enterprises, and to produce the seafood for the local market and Chinese market. And the third phase is an interruption period, which lasted 2010 to 2016 due to the intense bilateral relations. So during this period, the cooperation on fisheries has been stagnant. And after that, since the end of the 2016, we have restarted the cooperation in fisheries and have actively made great achievements and for the practical cooperation in fishery sector. Because during this period, the bilateral relations have been consolidated and enforced. So the first one is in 2016, the action plan for agriculture cooperation between the Ministry of Agriculture of China and Department of Agriculture of the Philippines was signed in 2016. In this action plan, there are many cooperation contents like the capacity building, aquaculture, aquatic products processing, and so on. And the both sides have actively to promote the cooperation of these fields. And in 2017, the Sino-Filipino Philippines Fisheries Technical Training and Exchange was held by the South China Sea and South China Sea Fishery Research Institute with strong support and guidance of the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs. During this activity, there are 17 fishery officials have paid a visit to the South China Sea Fishery Research Institute and get some training. And then on April 26, 2017, the second JCF meeting was held in Manila. And at this meeting, our Vice Minister of the Ministry of Agriculture has witnessed some cooperation agreements signing. And then the MOU between the Ministry of Agriculture and the Department of Agriculture of the Philippines on donation of the leopard coral grouper seeds by the Ministry of Agriculture of the China was signed on November 15th, 2007. And also at the same year, at the end of the same year, the Chinese fishery delegations has paid the visit to the Paglinawan, include to like the Western Philippine universities and also the other research facilities to promote the fishery cooperation and the investment of the enterprises. And since 2017, in totally the 200,000 leopard coral groupers seeds and 20,000 freshwater fish fries. That includes loach, bighead carp, wuchang bream, and grass carp have been donated to the local fish farmers and hatcheries to promote the marine culture practices and also the gene pool improvement of the local hatchery. And also in next year, in 2018, the MOU on marine culture technical cooperation and exchanges among the South China Sea Fishery Research Institute and the Paglinawan Council State Sustainable Development Staff and also DAB-FAR Region 4 was signed in that year to promote the marine culture in these years. And also that's mainly for the JCF mechanisms, and the other mechanisms is about the BCM, as Dr. Yan mentioned, the BCM, and this BCM since the 3rd to the 6th meeting, in the technical working group on fisheries, we have attended this technical working group, and both sides of the delegations from the Philippines and China has had productive exchanges of views on the ways and also active achievements to enhance maritime cooperation in the area of the fisheries. And we also have identified some cooperation priorities in the coming years. And then it's about the 3rd JCF meeting was held in Beijing in July in 2019. Both sides reviewed and gave the high appraisals of the China and Philippines fishery cooperation, exchanged views in depth on issues of common interest, and reached consensus on the way forward for fishery cooperation in the fields of the marine culture, technical training, and the seaweeds research and technical innovations, etc. And this also since 2017, because of the good and stable bilateral cooperation, bilateral ties, and which has created the very good and also stable cooperation and investment climate. The more Chinese enterprises have invested in aquaculture sector and trade. So like in the field of the deep sea cage culture of economic species like groupers, lobsters, and the tilapia shrimp, and also the trade of the seaweeds. The following two pictures just taken by the Chinese enterprises in the Philippines. They have conducted some deep sea cage culture and have created the employment and also increased the local local fisher folks' income. And also that mainly for above mentioned are mainly for the bilateral cooperation, and the other one is for the multilateral cooperation mechanisms, like mainly just the policies dialogues, like the EAS workshop on the maritime cooperation, the sustainable and responsible fishery management, which was held on November 17th to 19th, 2019 in Manila. And at this meeting, Chinese delegation and also the Philippine delegation has made presentations on the policies and management measures on sustainable and responsible fisheries. And the other one is about the Asian-China Joint Working Group on the implementation of the declaration on the conduct of parties in the South China Sea. Which the Vietnam has organized the workshop on the promoting cooperation in ensuring just and the humane treatment of the fishermen in the South China Sea. We also have attended this workshop and made the presentations on about the policies and measures to make it to prevent to protect the life and also to make sure the safety and the security of the fishermen in the South China Sea. So the above all are mainly for about the achievements, especially achievements for the fishery cooperation, especially since 2017. So I just make a summary for the bilateral fishery cooperation. I think the key factor is the principle is just the mutual benefit and win-win cooperation for the common sector development, because both countries just lies located along the South China Sea. We are all the coastal states. Most of the people or millions of the people depends on the fishing and fisheries. So we need to make some efforts to promote the sector development. And I think the first one is the government because the bilateral ties is very important. And so that means the G2B channel, G2G channel will how to say, identify the cooperation priorities for both countries and created the good atmosphere for the cooperation. And the other one is the research institutions, because even like the South China Sea Fishery Research Institute and the others, like that other universities in China, we have done a lot of research work in subtropical and tropical fisheries, and also even the freshwater fisheries. And also in Philippines, like Western Philippine universities, and also the other research institutions under the DAB-FAR, we have the different advantages. We have the potential for cooperation in the field of the research, like and also our Chinese delegation also would like to provide some technical support for the local farmers. And the other one is the business, because business is very important for the income increase for the local farmers, and also generate the employment. And because during the past years, we have established a very good cooperation channels. But I just summarize that the challenges is mainly about the impacts of the COVID pandemic, because like the bilateral talks and also scientific cooperation and academic exchanges, technical training and transfer, even the investment and aquatic product trade have to stop or cannot be promoted due to the travel restrictions. I just have the feedback from Chinese enterprises because they cannot or cannot deliver their inputs to the Philippines to improve the facilities of the culture. So because of the travels, so that is a very important factors which has hindered the cooperation. But since 2020, under the strong support and guidance of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs of China, we have been conducting the online technical trainings for the Southeast Asian countries, including the Philippines. Even now, there is the one technical training being undertaken. There are totally 48 Filipino fisheries officers and also managers and also the technical staff of the enterprises in the Philippines attended the technical training, including like the management systems in China and also even some technical innovations, including the sea, the fish, shellfish, and also even the seaweeds and the others. And by the way, on the May of this year, we also have conducted an online workshop on the sustainable fishery development along the South China Sea. Also, the 4 delegates from the Philippines attended this workshop and delivered the presentations. So the third part is about the proposed cooperation fields in the fishery sector. As you know, you can see the picture that just the President Marcos met with China's State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi. During their meeting and talks, China, we have expressed that we are willing to carry out the cooperation with the Philippine side in the 4 key areas of large-scale agriculture, fishery, large-scale infrastructure and energy, and also even culture and people-to-people exchanges. So the large-scale agriculture, of course, and certainly includes the fisheries and aquaculture. So we should do something to promote the bilateral ties. And as I also know the new government or administration is formulating the Philippine development plan for the next 5 years. I think also the fishery sector also will be included, and we also want to cooperation in this field. So I just list some cooperation fields. The first one is as Dr. Bobby and Tuazon and also the chairs has mentioned about the management policies. That is mainly the dialogues and even the sharing under the BCM and also the GCA or Joint Committee on Agriculture and Joint Committee on Fisheries and other multilateral cooperation mechanisms like China Asian, FLO, NACA, EAS, and ARF, etc. I think they are the good bilateral and multilateral platform for our management policies exchanges. That is very important. And by the way, the second one is about the fishery resources conservation and utilization. That is very important, as Dr. or Prof. Bobby Tuazon mentioned. The coastal fishery resources are depleting. So but we have a lot of millions of people depends on the fishing. So we need to do something, to do some work like the joint survey or assessment and even the joint exploitation of the fishery resources to increase the income of the local fisher folks, and also the joint fishing ban during the fishing breeding season, because this kind of the matter is proven a very effective approach to conserve the fishery resources and the sustainable utilize the fishery resources, and also even the joint committee combating the IUU fishing and to safeguard their rights of the local fishers. and to scientifically, so as to the scientifically conserve and sustainable utilize the common fishery resources, because the fish has no boundary. So we need to cooperate to protect or conserve the fishery resources. And the second one is stock enhancement programs, such as the large-scale seeds production, and also even the artificial releasing of the seeds to the natural water bodies, including the inland water bodies and also the seas, and even the marine ranching and leisure fisheries plus terrariums. So that is also a good alternative for the development of the fisheries. And also the other one is coral reef fishery conservation, seagrass bands, and also mangrove forest resources protection, etc. And the third field is poverty, elevation, and food security through aquaculture development in the coastal communities, because there are a lot of people live along the coastal areas. And as I found that according to the PSA, in 2021, there was about 19.99 million people were in poverty in the Philippines. So, and also there are about above 50% of the towns located along the coastal areas. That means they are mainly, even the China, there are many local coastal communities. We live on the fisheries resources, but as the depletion of the resources, besides the utilization, and then we also need to do some interventions of the aquaculture in the coastal communities to improve their livelihood. And I also have listed other fields like aquaculture, GMPO improvement and exchanges like tilapia, carps, groupers, tunas, and lobsters. And also the scientific cooperation in breeding and hatchery of high-value species, environmental friendly aquaculture, including the mariculture, brackish culture, and freshwater aquaculture, and the rare and endangered species conservation, oyster farming, and the environmental impacts, etc. And also the mitigating effects of the climate change and the natural disasters like the typhoon on fishery and aquaculture. And then it's about capacity building of fishery officials and the stakeholders. That is very important. And also we are and also we have been undertaking the international training programs. Hopefully the next year we can invite the fishery officials from the Philippines to come to China to get the training. And also the other one is the about the fishery post-harvest technologies and reduce losses, and to increase the income of the farmers. And then the investment in aquaculture industry. And the last one is aquatic products marketing and trade, especially under the mechanisms of the RCEP, so that because China is a big market for the consumption of the seafood, I think this is a very good way to cooperate in this field. So that's all. So that's all for my presentation. I hope let's make joint efforts to promote the fishery pragmatic cooperation to benefit the community contributions to our neighborly friendship and common development. Thank you.
Yeah, before we introduce our fifth speaker, my comment is like this, no? I just, in the presentation of Dr. Ming, I've noticed that 2010 to 2016, there's no such thing as cooperation on fishery management. I think precisely because of the fact that the two countries suffered some kind of bilateral crisis, no, during those period. But you can see it, no? When the two countries, when you talk about their bilateral relations are okay, it means like, you know, there's like a strong bilateral friendship between the two, and the two countries are talking and engaging. You can see as well that, you know, it follows that cooperation when you talk about even in the area of fishery management, no, is there. You can see it after from 2010 to 2016, not much, but from 2016 during the time of Duterte until hopefully until this time of President Marcos, a lot of cooperation, even in terms of training, exchanges, and MOA, MOU has been signed, and you have different mechanisms. So that's very important to take note that, you know, for us to bridge understanding and cooperation in different fields, the bilateral relation of the two countries has to be always in a stable relationship, or it should be stable as much as possible. So that's very important to note, I think. So let's introduce our fifth speaker so that we can save time. Let me introduce our fifth speaker is Mr. Adolfo Paglinawan, or simply Ka-Ado, as he is popularly known by many of us here in the Philippines. He is a Filipino journalist, public intellectual, and business professional with extensive experience in diverse academic and professional fields. He holds an undergraduate degree in liberal arts, major in English and philosophy. Ka-Ado has also obtained certifications in various fields of information technology at the USDA Graduate School, International Public Relations at the George Washington University, and Islamology at the Georgetown University. His active engagements in journalism and social media activism undeniably serve as training grounds in his writing and discursive prowess. Ka-Ado also served as the press attaché and spokesman of the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C. from 1986 to 1993, and was recalled to serve in the peace negotiating panel with the Moro National Liberation Front, or MNLF, and the Cordillera People's Liberation Army in 1987. Furthermore, Ka-Ado authored two noteworthy books. The first one is A Problem for Every Solution. It's a situationnaire on the territorial dispute in the South China Sea. And the other one is No Vaccine for a Virus Called Racism, a survey of COVID-19 implications from an international perspective. I think Ka-Ado is coming up with his third book. No, I will let him introduce it. He is also a host of Ang Maestro, The Unfinished Revolution, broadcasted by Radio Pilipinas. It's a national radio station. He's also the host of an online podcast, Power Things, of the Global Talk News Radio, streamlined in various social media platforms like Facebook and YouTube, and one of the hosts of a television show, Opinion Ngayon, broadcasted in Golden Nations Network every Friday. Mr. Paglinawan is also one of the 2021 Award for Promoting Philippine China Understanding awardees under the Major Contributions category. Likewise, he is serving as the Vice President for Internals of the Asian Century Philippine Strategic Studies Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Mr. Adolfo Paglinawan for his opening statement or presentation. Ka-Ado, please take the floor.
Good afternoon. The decibels of distraction provided by American lawfare and propaganda has not diminished, especially in relation to fishing activities in the South China Sea and other geopolitical concerns. This is why for this paper, allow me to present the larger picture of ambitious cooperation that will benefit not just the Philippines and China, but the entire world. We are a small country, but the Philippines has the 5th largest coastline in the world at almost 23,000 miles, next to Canada, Indonesia, Norway, and Russia, and bigger than that of Japan, the United States, and China. More importantly, we are considered the center of global coral ecosystem biodiversity because our waters contain almost 10% of the world's coral reefs, 93% of which exists in our territorial seas, up to 12 nautical miles from shore. and we have large swaths of mangrove forests and more marine protected areas than any other country, equivalent to 2% of the globe, found in 100% of our coastal waters, which are life-giving and vital natural resource for about 2 million registered small-scale fishers and their families who rely on these waters to provide income and food. Seemingly impossible just 20 years ago, protein deficiency among fishing communities is now increasing at an alarming rate. Despite efforts to regulate the fishing industry, open and relatively unregulated access to marine resources has remained the norm. And that is why the current condition of fisheries in the Philippines is bleak. The local reliance on fish-based protein has driven widespread and chronic municipal overfishing, illegal fishing, and habitat destruction has led to fish stock decline steadily for decades, almost going 3 decades now, in relation to the growing population. Fishers now spend more time at sea, going further and further from home for smaller and smaller unsustainable yields. Sadly, our fish production has stagnated during the last decade because, as the numbers confirm, we are overfishing in the wrong waters, degrading our inland and coastal waters, and over-reliant at best utilizing the traditional and indigenous basnig system or the lift nets operated by large outrigger boats. We have not invested in modern vessels and fishing gear to enable our commercial fishing to go far into the deep waters and onto our exclusive economic zones and beyond. Notably, in the uncontested waters of the Benham Rise, and below it, the south of the Philippine Sea and the Celebes Sea. Since it's easy to catch fish towards the direction of the South China Sea, that is where a traffic jam exists and often in conflict with fishers of other countries. In aquaculture, we have squandered our opportunities in this field. For as early as 1967, when Philippines started to host the Southeast Asian Fisheries Development Center, or SIFDEC, created to ensure the sustainability of fisheries and aquaculture in 11 countries in Southeast Asia. According to Emil Javier, compared to our ASEAN neighbors, we have far less fisheries resources. Our neighbors who have far less fisheries resources than we do, with the exception perhaps of Indonesia. Our fish exports in 2015 amounted only to less than $500,000, while Vietnam posted almost 3 billion and Thailand 2 billion. A 2020 chart indicates how rapid Vietnam and Thailand exports have apparently grown threefold in 5 years, overtaking even Indonesia, and the Philippines is not even in the list. So what are the few broad strokes that I would like to expound in this webinar? First, solve the Gordian knot that ties Philippine fisheries, and immediately you solve the poverty incidence in this country. I have, since 2003, been working as a consultant to the Secretary of Agriculture and Fisheries, advocated for the legislation of a separate Department of Fisheries and Marine Resources. What we are talking about, when deliberately pursued, can make us one of the leaders in world fisheries trade beyond achieving our fish sufficiency for our own population. But the Philippines has a feeble or weak fishing industry to speak of. We have to alleviate intense fishing pressure on the nearshore stocks and minimize the overexploitation of our municipal waters by creating incentive to commercial fishers and encouraging foreign direct investments so that we can go further into the deep seas beyond even our EEZs. Immediately, we need to conduct exploratory research on non-traditional grounds and expanded waters to determine their full biological and economic potential. No territorial disputes are anticipated in the fisheries management areas designated by the Philippines 1 to 5A, which is the entire of the Philippine Sea, including Benham Rice, and below it, and the Celebes Sea. West and south of the Philippines, totaling 130 million hectares. Better service by trawl fishing boats from 75 to 150 footers. This includes the relatively uncharted resources of the Benham Rice and the Philippine Seas west of the Philippines. But obviously, a modus vivendi must be forged with China on areas 5B and 6, constituting 60 million hectares of what we claim in the South China Sea. Number 3, such potentially massive expansion must be met with political will from the Philippine government to provide an absorption capacity, starting with strategic fishing hubs equipped with adequate facilities for ice plants to frozen storage, to portside canning and processing, and necessary electrification, preferably by renewable resources. While working for the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C. in the late 80s, I had the privilege of participating in one such huge absorptive capacity building in General Santos, a seed funded by the United States. There was nothing that followed that great endeavor. And so with China, I would like to propose 6 strategic hubs, 2 in Luzon, 1 in Visayas, and 3 in Mindanao, that is outlined in the working paper that I have submitted to the chat room. Number 4, there is also an immediate need to arrest the progressive decline of fish catch in our inland and coastal waters, where fishing efforts have gone beyond sustainable levels. This is where I welcome the suggestions of Mr. MING Junchao, especially when in government, he said, building ties, in research, scientific support, and in business investment to increase revenues. We need to establish more protected areas and spawning sanctuaries and resolutely enforce closed fishing sessions to allow mature juvenile fish to grow to marketable size, and a massive educational campaign among our people to respect such new culture and way of doing business. There is also an immediate need to rehabilitate our mangroves, seagrass, and algae beds, and often soft-bottom communities of special concern are the coral reefs covering 27,000 square kilometers, known all over the world for being home to 533 species of corals and about 2,000 marine fish species, exceeding Australia's barrier reef. But due to wanton overfishing, fish abundance had been estimated to have declined 50 down to 20 tons per square kilometer compared with 100 for pristine coral reefs. Number 5, compared with the aquaculture in Vietnam and Thailand, we have a long way to go in further expanding fish pens, fish cages, fish ponds in our lakes, rivers, reservoir, and in coastal brackish waters as well as sea-based mariculture, such as one that Mr. Ming informed us in Subic Bay, this deep water cage culture base for sea bass and golden trumpet. We need to improve hatchery and grow out technologies and brood stock farms. We need to scale up research and development in biology, breeding, fry production, nutrition, culture, and fish health for new species like crabs, sea bass, gropers, abalone, and maybe even Pacific blue fin tuna. And we definitely have to secure investment and provide certain areas for small fishermen and their cooperatives, while providing locators with incentives like in export processing zones. Number 6, there's so much upside potential for our fishery sector. However, in addition to addressing technological, ecological, and economic challenges, we need to have the appropriate fisheries policies and management systems and institutions in place. It is necessary to build and strengthen the capabilities of local governments, non-government organizations, and local communities whose participation is key to every governance success. The key, number 7, challenge of the new fisheries paradigm is so ambitious. Our best bet for success is partnering with China on this Herculean task. The Chinese liberated 800 million of their people from the poverty line in just about 30 years. It is the only nation that has preferential option to help developing countries such as ours with the least conditionality. China is forecast to account for 38% of the fish supply for the world's human consumption by 2030. It will be foolhardy not to join that bandwagon. So let's start a deliberate cooperation now and borrow China's roadmaps. Number 8, in fact, even in the areas of cooperation on maritime law enforcement and cooperation in the protection of marine environment, this is where I suggest that in the absence yet of the ASEAN-China Code of Conduct, that we bilaterally move forward to joint China-Philippine Coast Guard patrols, especially as we venture outside our territorial waters, around the Philippines. In the light of the ASEAN century that is starting to blossom in the horizon, China has invited all nations to share its vision to build a community of shared future for mankind. Being the closest country to China with its soft belly in the South China Sea to our face, I am optimistic China will lean backward as we constructively leverage our geopolitical location to be her most important strategic partner in helping alleviate hunger in this planet. Thank you very much and good day.
Thank you very much, Ka-Ado, or Mr. Adolfo Paglinawan, for that very enlightening and very informative presentation. I think what Ka-Ado have explained to us or shared with us is more on the problems, no, and realities that the Philippines fishery industry is facing at the moment. No, at the same time, what he is trying to say as well, from the way I see it, is with all the challenges that we have in the country, well, the Philippines, it's very important really to have a very good or for China and the Philippines to work together, or for China even to help the Philippines, in the fishery area or field, especially when you talk about cultivating different possible joint cooperation, as what also explained by Dr. Ming earlier. And I hope those cooperation and cooperative ventures between the two countries, not only at the state to state level, but even industry to industry level, because this is fishery, and when you talk about fishery, there's a lot of industry as well in this country because we are a coastal state. So I think it will also push through. And Kaado actually pointed out many steps and it's like a proposal on his side, what to do, what Filipinos should do, and at the same time, how we can possibly cooperate with China, and in what sense China can also be more relevant to the Philippines when you talk about fishery or the fishing industry of the country. So yeah. Yes, Mr. Daipan.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Paglinawan is really excellent on fishery resources. So he talks about the agenda situation the Filipino fishermen are facing, growing population, and also increasing exhausted fishery resources. So in this regard, he proposed the close cooperation between China and the Philippines. He's right. China has very mature fishery and breeding technology. So China and the Philippines can have deeper cooperation in the field. So maybe some coastal province in the Philippines can cooperate with our Canton province in some breeding technology in the future. So maybe Dr. Min and Mr. Paglinawan can share your ideas in the future. So hopefully in the future, on the table of ordinary Filipino, except milkfish, you may have more alternative. Okay, yeah. So when you have our last speakers, Dr. Zhu Xuan, and she's a distinguished fellow from GGI. She will speak on cooperation in protection and marine environment. Okay, welcome, Dr. Zhu Xuan.
Well, thank you, Professor Dai. Well, it's my great honor to attend this webinar on this important topic, the China-Philippine cooperation on marine environmental protection. And my background is mainly on ocean environmental policy and related international cooperation. I have been working to support the APEC ocean-related cooperation and the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission meetings for the past years. And I'd like to thank the host to invite me here to speak on this topic on the China-Philippine cooperation on marine environmental protection. I first like to share my screen. Let me see. Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, actually, I would like to say some words about the topic, marine environmental protection. Actually, we all know that in recent years, ocean conservation has become an important topic for international community. Well, only in this year, 2022, we see several high-level international conferences held focused on ocean conservation. For example, the UN Ocean Conference held in Portugal, July, the One Ocean Summit held in France, February, and the 5th UN Environmental Assembly held in Nairobi in March. Well, all these conferences put the protection of ocean and sustainable development in their central agenda, and heads of government, scientific institute, and NGOs come together to discuss and think about innovative solutions to restore the ocean health. Well, this is the outline of my speech. I will first briefly introduce the state and trend of typical marine ecosystems in East Asia and Southeast Asia. And then I'll talk about briefly on the global progress on ocean conservation. And then I will talk about the multi-level and the bilateral cooperation between China and the Philippines on marine environment protection. And the last, I will talk about some personal understandings for future cooperation. First, I'd like to show some figures. Well, as our previous speaker, Professor Adolfo just said that the Southeast Asia actually is a hotspot of marine biodiversity in worldwide. We can see this picture, the left up the finger. It shows the global pattern of marine biodiversity. And the red area shows that the Southeast Asia and East Asia displays the highest level of marine biodiversity. And we can see the second finger, that for the mangroves, and the South and Southeast Asia contains 40% of the world's mangrove forest, with Australia having another 10%. Well, the third finger shows that the Southeast Asia, the coral triangle area is also the hot points for coral reefs. It is home to more than 30% of the total 6,000 coral species. Well, actually, ocean provides human societies with a lot of wealth, livelihood, and economic service. But actually, our ocean is facing threats. Actually, nearly 20% of mangroves and seagrasses species have been identified as threatened or near threatened. Actually, the finger in the Southeast Asia is even higher. So we are facing the paradox that we see the growth in ocean economy, but at the same time, we can see rapid decline in ocean health. So it's time to have actions. Well, in this slide, I can show that actually it's a global common understanding that we need to take actions to reserve the declining trends of ocean health. In the 2022 UN Ocean Conference just held in Lisbon in this July, the head of states signed a declaration named "Our Ocean, Our Future, Our Responsibility." Well, let's move to the next slide. Well, in this declaration, actions are encouraged to address marine environmental problems such as marine pollution, marine plastic litter, climate change, biodiversity, sustainable fisheries, and call on states and other stakeholders to carry out science-based and innovative actions, and to respect the role of indigenous knowledge in ocean conservation. Also, states and other stakeholders are encouraged to register voluntary commitments to register their actions to be taken to protect the ocean. Actually, until now, there are 2,080 voluntary commitments registered at the conference website by governments, NGOs, and other communities. Well, here I want to show some examples of the voluntary commitments registered by China and the Philippines, and by both sides. Well, we can say that the Philippines registered the voluntary commitment to strengthen marine protected area to conserve marine key biodiversity area. And another voluntary commitment is to carry out the GES small grant program in the Philippines. Actually, they also focus on MPA management. And there are some voluntary commitments registered by China, like to strengthen the conservation of tropical coastal sea space, to strengthen the marine protected area in Southeast Asia, and to support the implementation of the Yellow Sea Large Marine Ecosystem Project. This is a project led by UNEP. Very interesting that I also found some voluntary commitment registered by both China and the Philippines. Actually, there are some commitment led by the intergovernmental organizations, such as the coordinating body on the seas of the East Asia, the Marine Title MOU, and the commitment registered by the UNESCO Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission to develop research capacity and transfer of marine technology. We can see that the UN Ocean Conference actually provide a platform for both China and the Philippines, along with other countries, to share their experience on marine conservation and to make collective efforts on many aspects of marine environment. Well, another global progress, I want to highlight the convening of the 5th session of the UN Environmental Assembly. Well, in this conference, the head of delegates make a resolution named "End Plastic Pollution" toward an internationally legally binding instrument. Well, this is a historical instrument. It opens up negotiation for the first global framework to end plastic. And according to this resolution, the negotiation will start this year and expected to complete in 2 years later. So by that time, there will be another important global framework on marine environment protection, the Plastic Convention. Well, another global framework is the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. The decade starts last year, 2021, and will complete in 2030. Well, for 10 years, this decade called on all states and scientific community stakeholders to carry out scientific programs to better understand our oceans and protect our oceans. Actually, until now, there are over 200 projects and other contributions registered by government and stakeholders under this framework. It's also a framework that China and the Philippines can participate. Now I'll talk about the multi-level cooperation. First, I'll give some information about the regional framework for environmental protection, and then I will talk about regional cooperation activities in other forums, like in the APEC forum and the China ASEAN forum. Actually, the regional actions to protect marine environment starts from 1990s. We can say that with support of UNEP, the project named Reversing Environmental Degradation Trends in the South China Sea and the Gulf of Thailand started in 1996. It is participated by the Cambodia, China, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. The main output of this project is a strategic action program with actions to support countries, to get countries to protect the marine environment in the South China Sea and Gulf of Thailand. Also, it encouraged states to submit national action plans to protect coral reefs, mangroves, and seagrass. Well, another regional intergovernmental organization is named the Coordinating Body for the Seas of the East Asia. It's also supported by UNEP, the COMSI. It is established in 1993, and it is participated by 9 countries in this region. And it's the intergovernmental mechanism to support the implementation of the East Asian Seas Action Plan. It's an action plan fixed on the pollution control, marine coastal planning, and climate change. Well, the 2018 and 2022 strategic plan, strategic direction of the COMSI include the land-based marine pollution, coastal planning and management, and regional governance on marine environment protection. Another intergovernmental organization in this region is PAMC, the Partnerships in Environmental Management for the Seas of East Asia. It is also initiated in 1993, and until now it has 11 country partners and 20 non-country partners. A major focus of PAMC is the integrated coastal management. It has built an ICM network, including local government in many countries of Southeast Asia. Well, we can say that in 1990s, actually, the main problem facing by Southeast Asia is marine pollution and the conflicted uses of the sea areas. So in this time, the priorities of regional marine environment protection is pollution control, integrated coastal management, and to promote ecosystem-based management. Well, here I want to talk about some of the cooperation acts between China and the Philippines under the APEC framework. In APEC, the major working group to deal with ocean-related issues is the Ocean and Fishery Working Group. Well, now the working group has 3 pillars: the blue economy, the marine debris, and the fishing problem, the fishing management. Actually, blue economy has become a priority of APEC since 2010, and China and the Philippines both implemented projects on blue economy. Well, in 2014, the Philippines reported their progress on valuing blue economy using a Philippines lens, and also they shared their experience on marine protected areas and its contribution to the blue economy. And in this area, China actually held 6 APEC blue economy forums from 2011 to 2021. The 6th blue economy forum just held last year. After years of collective efforts, APEC has reached a policy plan, the APEC high-level policy dialogue on food security and blue economy plan of action in 2015. And that year is the Philippines host the year of APEC. So the agreement on this policy plan is highly supported by the Philippines. Another priority in APEC ocean-related cooperation is marine debris. In 2014, APEC established the APEC WSHU Working Group on Marine Debris to find the innovative solutions to deal with land-based pollution. There are many workshops, training shops on marine debris under the APEC framework. And in 2019, APEC agreed on the APEC roadmap on marine debris. And it pointed out directions for future cooperation, like to engage the private sectors to apply new technologies and to strengthen infrastructure development. Well, blue economy is also a hot topic in the China-ASEAN cooperation. In 2019, China raised to build the China-ASEAN partnership on blue economy and to promote blue economy development in the area of marine environment protection, marine technology, and marine industry development. Actually, after that, in 2020 and 2021, China and ASEAN countries held 2 Jakarta Forum on exploring China-ASEAN partnership for blue economy, promoted the experience sharing on blue economy. Last year, 2021, the ASEAN leaders endorsed the ASEAN Leaders Declaration on Blue Economy. In this declaration, blue economy is understood as the sustainable, resilient, and inclusive use, governance, management, and conservation of oceans, seas, as well as marine resources for economic growth. And it encourages ASEAN countries to explore areas related to ocean conservation, such as to cooperate on the environment protection, on IOU fishing, marine and coastal ecosystem protection, on fishing practice, on sustainable production and consumption, also to address the problem of marine pollution, marine litter, plastic, and to promote coastal tourism and heritage conservation and strengthen capacity building. Well, actually, ASEAN also had a history to cooperate on marine debris. In 2017, the ASEAN countries held the ASEAN Conference on Reducing Marine Debris in the ASEAN region. As the outcome of this conference, it's later developed into the ASEAN Framework of Action on Marine Debris. It had priority areas such as policy support and planning, research, innovation, capacity building, public awareness, education outreach, and private sector engagement. And in 2018, in the 13th East Asia Summit, the East Asia Summit leaders agreed on the East Asia Summit leader statement on combating marine plastic debris. Only 1 year later, the Asia Summit agreed on the Bangkok Declaration on combating marine debris in ASEAN region. We can see that marine debris are gaining increasing attentions by ASEAN countries, and China also like to promote cooperation in this important area in marine debris monitoring, marine debris research, and microplastic monitoring and prevention. Well, previous speakers talk about the Philippines-China bilateral consultation mechanism on the South China Sea, the BCM mechanism. Well, it held 6 meetings until 2021. It has 3 working groups, and the 3rd working group is about marine environment protection and marine scientific research. Under this working group, China and the Philippines has great potentials to explore the possible areas and pathways to deepen cooperation on marine environment protection. Also, marine environment protection is mentioned in the joint statement between China and the Philippines in 2018. In paragraph 27, it is said that both sides agreed to strengthen existing cooperation mechanisms, agreed to cooperate in the implementation of relevant international maritime instruments to ensure the safety of life at sea, the marine environment protection, and human resource development. We can say that marine environmental protection is a key part of the joint statement. And well, the last part of my speech is about the future directions between China and the Philippines. First, I would say that the marine environment protection cooperation should be multi-level. It could be intergovernment, and it could involve private enterprises. And we can also encourage the institute and think tanks to contribute to this important area. Also, it should be inclusive. we should engage more with private sectors and investors, and cooperate with civil societies to raise the awareness of marine environment, the outreach and education activities. Potential corporate areas, I highlight some 3 potential corporate areas here. The first one is marine debris, including microplastic. We can promote collective monitoring, prevention, and cleanup of marine debris in the coastline of China and the Philippines. And we can have research projects to promote the sustainable production and consumption. Also, another corporate area is blue economy. China and the Philippines could strengthen cooperation under the framework of China ASEAN Partnership on Blue Economy. And we can also make use of the APEC Blue Economy Forum and the APEC Blue Economy pilot projects. Under these mechanisms, China and the Philippines could exchange experience and have concrete actions on blue economy development. The third area is the joint scientific research. The China and the Philippines could have the joint scientific research on marine environmental and biological survey, as the understanding of the ocean is the basis for the in-depth protection and the conservation. We should strengthen the cooperation on scientific research. The last potential area is the capacity development. Here, I want to talk about the marine scholarship of China. It's open to candidates from developing countries, and the ASEAN area is a key area of this scholarship. We support candidates to study ocean-related major in China's universities, and the candidate from Philippines is highly welcomed by this scholarship. And China held the training workshops on marine debris management, sustainable agriculture, marine protected area, and act on an annual basis. And we all welcome the candidates, the experts from the Philippines to attend the training workshops. Well, also this year, China launched the Sustainable Blue Partner Cooperation Network. This is a network organized by the World Economic Forum and the China Oceanic Development Foundation. And it is expected to be a platform to facilitate multi-stakeholder cooperation on blue partnership, include governments and NGOs, scientific communities, and civil society to participate. Well, actually, under this cooperation network, we have 16 partnership principles to deal with climate change problem, to reducing pollution, to promote the sustainable use of marine resources, and promoting blue growth. I think this network could be a useful platform for China and the Philippines to deepen the cooperation on marine environment protection. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for all the experts facilitated. Thank you for all the experts. And it's also a good opportunity for me to learn the knowledge about marine environment protection and about the China-Philippine cooperation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zhu. So both the Philippines and China are facing the threats from climate change. So the Philippines, as an archipelago country with thousands of islands, especially fragile before environment degradation. So marine environment protection, as Dr. Zhu said, is was a field that we can have deeper cooperation. Dr. Zhu also explored the possible cooperation from the perspective of global and regional cooperation. So it seems that we have a bright future in maritime cooperation. So Professor Anna, could you give some comments to Dr. Zhu?
Yes, I just noticed that in her presentation that there are a lot of multilateral and even ASEAN level or regional level cooperation and mechanism by which countries like the Philippines and China could cooperate when you talk about marine environmental protection. And I think one also very prominent in her discussion is the blue economy, which is basically, I think it's all about sustainable economy, trying to protect the marine environment, even though we're trying to utilize those resources in there. This is the presentation of the was very informative in many ways, because even I myself, I really don't know all of these things. So I've learned a lot from her presentation that, the marine environmental protection is not necessarily isolated from the climate change problem, or even the whole the challenge in addressing global environmental issues. So it's there, and I think these are mechanisms by which Philippine-China cooperation, when you talk about environmental protection, marine environmental protection, can be strengthened and probably can be intensified as well. So that's my take on the presentation. Yes, I think we can. It's already 4:14, and we have consumed 2 hours of the time. But I think we can open the floor for question and answer. It means open forum from our friends who are attending this webinar. If there are questions, please let us know, and please type it in the chat box. Okay. We can conclude the webinar, but let me ask one question, because I think this is important. Wait, let me check my question here. Here. Earlier there was a mention of the JCF mechanism and BCMs. No, are there any new development on this mechanism? No. Thus far, at this time around, that there was a change in administration in the Philippines from the Duterte administration to the Marcos administration. I think very important for our side to know if there are, on the side of China, if you know any development on the BCM per se, and even the mechanism on the joint cooperation on the fishery, just for us to know if, you know, we are expecting some kind of meetings in a matter of time between the two countries. I think Dr. Yan and Professor Dr. Ming was the one who explained this.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I have high hopes on this BCM mechanism. I personally think that the Chinese Foreign Ministry has wanted to continue this mechanism as a government level of umbrella mechanism that can host all this working group meetings and committees that can pave the way for future bilateral maritime cooperation. I think that maybe the new President Marcos government maybe needs some time to consider and how to consider how to arrange the future BCMs. So, but I personally have confidence in the new government, and I think that the future BCMs will be continued. It's my sincere hope.
Thank you, Dr. Yan. On the joint cooperation on fishery, are there any development at the moment?
Yeah, up to now, because of the COVID-19, and I'm not sure the progress. Actually, the fourth JCF meeting should be held in 2021 in Philippines, but due to the COVID-19, it just postponed. But I also, as Dr. Yan mentioned, we are confident that the both sides from the Ministry of Agriculture and Department of Agriculture, especially DAB-FA, they will promote this kind of mechanisms to hold this meeting, because this is very important mechanisms to promote the fishery sector cooperation. And we hope under the administration of President Marcos will promote this cooperation mechanisms on fishery sector.
Okay. Before we conclude, because I'll be the one who will be delivering the closing remarks, I have last question addressed to everyone, all our experts. No, how confident are you, and what are your thoughts on the basically on the cooperation between the two countries, the Philippines and China, when you talk about fishery, and when you talk about environmental protection, and of course maritime security? What would it entail for the two countries to continue and to be more sustainable in its, you know, in its dialogue and trying to forge a very stable relationship between the two on these areas like fishery management, marine environmental protection, and also maritime security. So I just want to have for each one of the speaker, especially the expert, to give their thoughts, and then from there I will try to close. I will close the webinar.
It was quite exciting to listen to the presentations of our Chinese friends, our Chinese colleagues. This is honestly, this is the first time that I am able to know that there have been lots of potential areas of cooperation between the Philippines and China, not to mention between China and ASEAN. I'm amazed at the development of the concept of the blue economy, the protection of the marine environment, the cleaning up of the ocean debris and other fields. And although my concern, however, is that much of the talk and discussion about these issues has been on the level of summits and conferences. I would have wanted to know how such talk, discussions, and probably agreements have been translated into actual accomplishments and ongoing projects. Now, with regard to the potential of more and greater cooperation between the Philippines and China on the fishery sector, on environment, on probably even in agriculture. Well, you know that the president has assumed the position of the Secretary of Agriculture. Although 2 days ago he appointed an acting full-time secretary by the name of Domingo Panganiban. And this is the point that I was trying to raise last time during my short talk, that it is unfortunate that through the years and even decades of cooperation between the Philippines and China, such level of cooperation has met hiccups and humps along the way. And mentioned, for instance, that during the whole administration of Aquino III from 2010 to 2016, no such cooperation was present, you know, and it took, of course, the presidency of Duterte and now Marcos to entertain new plans and agreements on maritime cooperation. So that's my point, and that is the reason why I was saying that rather than just rely on the government, rather than just rely on state-to-state relations, we should here strengthen people-to-people exchanges and think tank exchanges, because these are permanent and they have lasting. They last longer compared to the in the case of the Philippines, succession of from one president to the next, from one policy to another policy, you know, and as long as we are able to develop cooperation at our level, the people's level, and the think tank level, and the academics level, we can unite and agree on how to consolidate our cooperation to push forward any proposals, policy proposals, and press the government to act, especially the Philippine government, to do something about that. We have a vibrant civil society organization in the Philippines. We have something like, you know, more than 50,000 NGOs. You will be surprised at this number. Why are there many NGOs in the Philippines? Because the government doesn't do its job. So we do our job. The NGOs do the job that the government doesn't do. The responsibilities that they are not doing. It is quite a frustrating, but action starts with some realities. It is when we realize about the truth of the internal political conditions in the Philippines that we will be able to plan something and do something. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Professor Bobby. Anyone who wants to have a last input before I close the whole webinar?
Me?
If there's yes, Dr. Yan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Because I did listen very carefully of what my Philippine friends said just now, and I think that there are another 2 points that I wanted to make. The first is that I do agree with my Filipino friends that the South China Sea dispute, the sovereignty issues, the maritime delimitation issues are still blocked away to some of the maritime cooperation projects between us. And I do wanted to say that I personally don't see that the South China Sea dispute can be resolved in the very near future. But we still need to move on. We still need to pave the way to build trust and confidence and pave the way for future settlement of the dispute. And this is how maritime cooperation can help. So pending the dispute settlement, we still need to build trust and confidence using in all these 3 areas that we have already just mentioned. And my second point is that, and I do also agree with many of my Filipino friends said just now, because the this whole South China Sea cooperation is under this China-US geopolitical competition. It's an environment, it's a background here in the South China Sea. So I do realize that with the U.S. Involvement in the South China Sea, the Quad, the Indo-Pacific strategy, and also with the very tight, very close security ties between the Philippines and the United States, there will be obstacles from the extra-regional countries for the future cooperation between China and the Philippines. So I think that the point I wanted to make is that the people, I mean, in the Philippines and in Manila and also in Beijing, we must be fully aware of what is best for us. And I think the prosperous and the peace and stability are in our own hands. So this is the second point I wanted to make. And finally, I really wanted to say that I agree with my friends saying that the people-to-people talk and communication is just very important, and it continues to be very importance in the future cooperations, no matter which government is taking place. So, and I look forward to the future Marcos government to continue the new BCM talks in the future. So that's my final talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yan. Anyone else before I close the webinar? Okay. If there's none, okay, let me deliver the closing remarks, for this webinar. To my co-chair and moderator of this webinar, Mr. Daipan, thank you very much for hosting it with me, and it's very nice to have someone trying to synthesize every presentation, and I appreciate that very much. To the different organizers of the webinar, I'll just want to mention them: GGI, or the Global Governance Institution, also the Asian Century Philippine Strategic Studies Institute, GTNR, EDC, and also our official media partner, the Manila Times. Thank you very much for the opportunity extended to all of us for having this webinar. I have only 3 points in my closing statement, no, and my closing remarks. First is maritime security and safety. It's critical for promoting trade flows and the sustainability of economic growth of countries in the region, of course, including China and the Philippines. Maritime security in the region is considered as a very important issue that I hope both countries will try to persevere in forging cooperation and understanding on this matter. Another thing that I would want to re-emphasize is I have the same statement, or perception or sentiment with that of Dr. Yan and the rest of our panel of experts, that when you talk about sovereignty and sovereign rights issues, these are high politics, these are emotional issues that I think will never be solved anytime soon, or it's not something that can be solved overnight. These are things that will be solved in a matter of time through dialogue and through constant communication between the two sides. And even when you talk about the South China Sea, it's not just between the Philippines and China. There are other claimant states that are part of it. And it's a disputed area that is, we need to be very clear that it's not just between China and the Philippines. You have Vietnam in there, you have other claimant states, even Malaysia is part of it. No, so we need to broaden our understanding on these issues. And I think for mutual understanding between the two countries to be facilitated more and to be deepened, I think we should focus on low politics. When you talk about low politics, I think this is more on what we have discussed today, joint fishery management in the South China Sea, or in any areas for that matter that, in the region. And also environmental protection. This is not just concerning the Philippines and China. It's actually a global issue. Climate change is a global issue. Environmental protection is a global issue. I think China and the Philippines should cooperate more on this and try to bridge understanding and probably joint activities. And also maritime security, again, is important. So we are neighbors, China and the Philippines. I think we could facilitate more cooperation between neighbors rather than, trying to have other external forces that are very far from our region. And also, I think we should try to focus more on these things rather than on geopolitics. The competition between China and the United States is there. I think countries like the Philippines should understand that, we should not be getting involved in this great power rivalry because we're just a small country. And I think that is not to the advantage of the Philippines. I think the Philippines should focus more on establishing cooperation with neighboring countries like China and even ASEAN countries and even the rest of the Indo-Pacific region countries. No? So I think that's much my take on this issue. So ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, our forum has come to an end. On behalf of the organizers, thank you again for participating, and I hope that we see you again in our next GGI and other think tank in cooperation with other think tanks forum. And we hope that you have learned something from this webinar, and we thank all of our experts and speakers for sharing their knowledge and expertise, and we would like to see you again. And hopefully this will not be just a webinar. No, sometimes probably in the near future, we can have really a forum that we are physically present and we can communicate more. And again, thank you and have a pleasant afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much. And thank you, Captain Andy, as well, for organizing this forum. Thank you so much.